Hello everyone, I'm Paul and today we're solving problem 2918, minimum equals sum of two arrays after replacing zeros. This is a medium problem, but this is all about observation, so here I will show you what's my intuition, approach and efficient solution, so keep watching. For this one we are given two arrays, nums1 and nums2. Let's say these are the arrays. And we need to replace all the zeros in both arrays with strictly positive integers such that the sum of elements in both arrays becomes equal. So for example, we know that the sum for this array will be 6 plus 5 plus 1 as a minimum, because remember we need to replace every zero with strictly positive integers. So this is 12. And the sum for this array will be 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 again. And this is 6, 7, 8. So this is the first observation we can make. First, we need the minimum sum for each array. Okay, so the minimum sum for this array, replacing all zeros by ones, is 12, and the minimum sum for this one is 8. Now let's continue with this example. We know that this is the array with the smaller sum, which is 8 as a minimum, and this has the maximum sum. So we can make this array to have a sum of 12. We could replace the 0 with a 2, for example, and this other 0 with a 4. And now 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 2 is 7, plus 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. And this could be a valid answer, so we know we can return 12. Now what happens if we don't have any 0 in the original array? Well, in this case our maximum sum would be 6, and in this case we will never reach 12, so in this case we want to return -1. So there's a second observation we can make. Does the array with the smaller sum has at least one 0? Because if it doesn't, we need to return -1, and if it does, we know that we can return the array with the maximum initial sum. So this problem is all about checking if we have zeros in the arrays and which is the maximum minimum sum that we can get by replacing zeros by ones. So this is the entire approach. Time complexity will be big O of n m, and space complexity will be big O of 1. So now let's go with the code and hopefully you'll get the idea. First we'll create the variables to store the sum in nums1, the count of zeros in nums1, and the same for nums2. So s1 set1 equals 0, 0, and the sum in 2 and zeros in 2 equals 0, 0. And now we want to iterate nums1 for every value in nums1. If the value is a 0, in this case we want to add to our counts of zeros in the first array a 1, and we want to add to the sum of the first array a 1 also. Else we add to the sum x, and we are doing the same for nums2. So for x in nums2, if x equals 0, zeros at 2 plus equal 1, sum at 2 plus equal 1, else sum at 2 plus equal x. And finally we'll say if s1 is bigger than s2 and zeros at 2 is empty, or s2 is bigger than s1 and zeros at 1 is empty, we return -1. Else we return the maximum between sum1 and sum2. So this is the entire code, and now we'll submit this and see if it works. And as you can see, this works. So if you found this useful, please drop a like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.